Hello, everyone. Welcome to the broadcast this morning. I'm glad that you're here. Let's see. We've got a few people in already. It's always great to see Kim and Dawn, Dana. Oh, nice to see you here. Eric, welcome back. Mike, Cheryl, Lisa, Janine. Thanks for joining us today. So we have another episode of our LMS playlist, our Real Talk playlist, which has been really fun so far. And it's kind of been popular as far as like downloads are concerned. I'm not sure whether or not Quetzal is going to be happy to hear this, but the first episode that we did of this one has already gotten a couple thousand downloads on the podcast side of things, which is really strange. And then after that, the rest of the episodes have just been pretty popular too. So I think that maybe on the live side, we don't have a ton of people showing up to participate in the broadcast, but they're watching all this stuff asynchronously. So very cool. And I want to continue this series, although right now listed Leslie's series today is the last one. I do have some other folks that we're going to be bringing in later for some more episodes in this playlist. And I wanted to mention too, that if you had an LMS that you wanted to show off or rant about or anything like that, just have some real talk about it. It's such a critical tool in our toolbox. Let me know, and we'll get you in and do an episode, and we'll have a conversation about it. It can only help others just by talking about, things like this, like your learning management system, how you use it, just the realities of dealing with something like this. Because when you go online to look up LMSs and to shop for them and discuss things with people, you end up really getting hit by a lot of marketing and sales stuff. I love this series that we're doing where we're actually talking to real people. And so with that, I'd like to introduce you all to Leslie Marquez. And also, just so you know, Leslie she's a senior instructional designer and a consultant, Inspire Learning Design. And it sounds like the primary LMS that you use and that you're a fan of is TalentLMS, which I know that even in our Slack group, Tom McDowell was saying how much he loved TalentLMS as well. So it's awesome. Nice that you're coming on. Yeah. And I am just going to, pitch this out there. I know I mentioned something about being sales and marketing earlier, but Leslie does have an affiliate link in the call to action area in the bottom of the screen. If you guys are interested in TalentLMS, go ahead and click on that to be able to get more information about that the system, and Leslie will get a little benefit from that. So I'm glad that we're able to offer that, because I'm so happy that you're spending some time with us to talk about what you do. And we were going to talk about reporting, surveys, multi-tenancy. And before we start that, let's talk about you and Inspire Learning Design. So you're a senior instructional designer and a consultant, right? How long have you been in instructional design?
Yeah, so I've been doing this about 15 years on and, just totally different places here and there. But, more than anything, I would say that I'm a consultant. I'm currently working as a freelancer, so strictly on a contract basis, taking all kinds of projects throughout the year, which is fun and exciting. And so I've been in the training and development industry, about 15 years. Started out in the higher ed world. I think a lot of us share that background in common. And I've been really fortunate because I've been able to work for a lot of organizations and teams spread across a ton of different industries. So nuclear engineering, healthcare, I mentioned higher ed. I've done some cybersecurity work, safety training with like OSHA and nuclear safety training. And then I've done a lot of work also in like sales enablement training and then sales leadership training. So it's a blessing. I've been able to sit in a lot of different instructional design roles. I've worked as a faculty developer. I've done a lot of facilitation. I've been a part of company-wide planning and implementation projects, and been able to lead a number of different initiatives. You name it in instructional design, I've probably worn that hat. And I think at one point I even won an award for wearing a lot of hats in instructional design.
Wow.
Yeah, but recently,
you know what?
Yeah,
I
go
want to
ahead.
say I do recognize. I recognize your name. Have you gone to? Did you used to go to like e-learning guild events by chance?
I did. Yes.
Okay, all right. Just
And,
because
a lot
I'm
of them
pretty
are
sure.
here in Orlando. So Learning Solutions was one that I would be at almost every year.
All right, that's my favorite one because I was there for years and I used to be in charge of a lot of the ops and stuff. So your name, I'm like Leslie Marquez, Leslie Marquez. So very cool. I probably have seen you like face to face. You probably even checked you in at like registration or something when I was doing that kind of stuff. So, yeah, no, that's great. You've been around now. So tell me what's like your typical day like as a consultant.
Well, it's I've been lucky enough to experience both sides. So I've been the corporate employee for large organizations, and then I just decided, you know what, this travel thing was just really getting to me. I wanted to spend more time with my family. So now I'm a consultant full time, and I love it. I have a lot of different clients. Each of them has very unique needs, and I work my best to figure out the best way to support what they need and make suggestions and develop learning products that are really going to be targeted to their professional goals and their organizational goals, and just really focused on what is their learner, what's the experience that they need to have, and how can we make that happen in an affordable way. And of course, everybody wants everything done very fast right now, so time and cost are the biggest things that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. But yeah, I do a little bit of everything. I do a lot of design and curriculum work, but I do also a lot of e-learning development as well. I have a very strong skill set in the Articulate 360 suite, and love those products. And I'm so glad that we're moving away from Captivate, because I spent years and years and years developing exclusively in Captivate. Got pretty tired of it.
Wow. So do you consider yourself like, are you a technical person?
Pretty much. I will say this, I don't get into a lot of the XAPI and, VR stuff. That's really not my wheelhouse, but it's mainly because of the types of businesses that I support. So my client base tends to be more small to medium-sized businesses. So their budgets really don't allow for that level of instructional design. And there's really not a need for it. So, for them, I focus on, what do you absolutely need? How can we get this done in the simplest way possible? For example, like the OSHA safety training stuff, their end learners are not technical at all. So I have to kind of step back and take my technical hat off and say, if I'm a construction worker or an industrial worker, what do I need to be able to accomplish the required trainings that I have to take every year? How am I going to be able to do that in a way that makes sense to me and that works within my schedule? So that's one of the things that's always a challenge, stepping outside of kind of our technical knowledge and really putting ourselves in the learner's seat.
No, that's great. That's great. And that's such an important skill to have, to be able to do that. So, you wear a bunch of different hats. Which is your favorite?
I like kind of being the jack of all trades. So all this experience in different industries and, corporate, a little bit of consulting, it's given me a really broad understanding and perspective. And I really enjoy what I do. So I love problem solving and that whole aspect of instructional design. So when I have somebody come to me and say, hey, we've been delivering our training face-to-face across the country, but we can't do that anymore, and our clients still need this stuff. How can we make that happen? So I love looking at, well, what do you have? What are the topics that you're training on? What would you like it to look like? I love that whole, let's look at the big picture and figure out how to put it together in a way that's going to work. That's my favorite part.
Nice. Okay, cool. All right. So let's go ahead and let's talk about TalentLMS, and sort of like what our primary topic is today is we're going to be talking about the reporting capabilities, the survey capabilities. And I definitely would like to hear more about multi-tenancy, because I'm not, not an LMS admin. I'm not familiar with that at all, but maybe just describe, to start out, TalentLMS, like, how'd you end up connecting with that particular LMS? What other LMSs did you go through first before you finally found that one and said, hey, this is the one I'm going as a consultant, I'm going to recommend, or how did that work?
Yeah, so great question. This was actually my first side hustle gig as a consultant, was putting somebody on TalentLMS that had never had an LMS before. My background, I had the opportunity to work with Blackboard, Moodle, Canvas, Saba, Cornerstone, you name it, all those big, huge corporate and higher ed LMSs. I used to go to Blackboard World every year. Mm-hmm. Loved that conference. It was one of my favorites. But I've worked with these really large LMSs, and all of a sudden I had a smaller organization coming to me and saying, hey, we have a certificate program that we really want to make blended. What can you do to help us out? And I really had to put on my thinking cap and my research cap and go out there and find something that was going to be cost effective, but also scalable for them, because they were growing exponentially. So we found TalentLMS. I did a lot of research, compared Litmus, Docebo, a couple other different options. We even explored doing a WordPress hosted LMS, and it just wasn't going to scale to meet the needs. So TalentLMS became the choice, and that was back in 2013 was the first time that I had the opportunity to work with it. And let me just say, I have been so impressed with the number of features that they have added and how much their knowledge base has grown over the years that I've had the opportunity to work with them, that I haven't seen anything else like it from an LMS of that size. For me, I mean, maybe I'm wrong in this, but I don't consider them as big as like a Canvas or a Saba, because that's just, to me, not their target market, is those super large, tens of thousands of people organizations.
Yeah.
I think they're really better for smaller to mid-sized businesses. But again, they've been able to scale with the growth of everyone that I have put on there. The features have kept up with the times, and all the changes that we've seen in the industry. And it's been a great tool to work with.
That's great. So wait, so how long ago did you start this project? When did this all begin?
So again, the first time I touched TalentLMS was that client that I had back in about 2013. So
okay, so it's been a while, and you've watched it sort of scale and grow, and it's still working for you. So that's doing all that legwork, that's a big deal, right? Like having to do that research and stuff. I mean, that's a lot of the folks that I feel like are paying attention to this whole series are folks that are in that same camp right now. They're like, we need to, especially with all of this content that is being created now specifically for online purposes. It's like, yeah, we need now, look at all this stuff that all these Zoom calls and everything that we're recording, and we have all this content. We need to be able to store it somewhere and be able to share it. And so, you did the legwork. You compared it to like, Docebo and Litmus, which is, I think, Calidus Cloud now. That's excellent. Okay. So with TalentLMS, let's talk about the survey and reporting feature. How did that really like sort of show up as something that was one of your favorite features? Can you describe what that is exactly?
Yeah, so let's talk about those two things separately, because I think they're two very, very different things. So reporting and progress tracking, okay? I think that a lot of the industries that I work with, it's really important for them to have a reporting tool built into their LMS that's tracking, are my clients looking at these courses? How much time are they spending on them? Have they completed the knowledge checks? Let's say that it's for OSHA training, for example, or let's say that it's for a sales training organization. Let's say that, the hiring manager has got somebody who's falling behind on their performance objectives for the year. Well, they can pull a report from TalentLMS. They can even have that report automated if they so desire. And they can look at how much time they're spending on training. Have they fallen behind on a particular topic that they're not scoring well on the knowledge checks, or, they're not spending as much time with the available training as they could be? Well, that gives that manager the opportunity to follow up with those people on an individual basis and really seek to help them in a constructive way and use that training in the way that it was intended.
Mm-hmm.
When I go back to people who are using the LMS for compliance training, the reporting feature really allows them to say, hey, we've got an audit coming up. We need to know who all's taken this particular topic. Did they pass? Did they meet the required training hours for this? I can pull those reports in seconds, and I can send them to the admins of those organizations, or I can have them automated on a monthly basis and send them out automatically to whomever I choose.
So that's fascinating. Sorry to interrupt, but now I'm really curious about this. So as a consultant, your interaction with the LMSs of your clients, do you function as just an additional admin, or like, how does that work? What do you do for folks? Like, I never thought about that, because like last episode we had Christiana and Mike. They both work for aristocrat.com. They're right in there. As soon as they log on in the morning, I suspect they probably log on immediately to Exonify and just get in there and do their thing. But then you're like a consultant. You probably have multiple clients. How does that work? Your relationship to their LMSs? Do you maintain like an ongoing thing, and you just have multiple organizations that you're supporting on a regular basis?
I sure do. And that's a great question. Part of what I do is not only the setup of the LMS and making sure that we've got the right fit there, because, TalentLMS isn't always the right answer. But making sure that we've got the right fit, making sure that it's set up the way that the client needs it to be set up. But then I do the ongoing administration as well, because one of the things I love about TalentLMS is if you set it up the right way, with those automation features that they have, and again, they're adding to those every month. They're adding all those new features for automation and reporting and all that. It really doesn't require that much time in ongoing administration. So, I have a few clients that are still building their content library. Mm-hmm. And so I'm helping them build courses. I'm helping them to solidify the curriculum paths, and we're doing a little bit of adaptive release just in the way that some of their training programs are sold. They're going back to that more blended format now. So they want their learners to take this topic and then 4 weeks later take another topic after they've attended a VILT session. And all that stuff can be set up ahead of time. So again, the ongoing maintenance in my experience has been minimal, and I like to set it up that way. So the less I have to touch it, the better. That means that I set it up right on the front end. And I really just haven't had too many issues that have popped up that have required me to be in there, just full-time adminning. I'm able to do other things as well.
Wow. Do you think that this TalentLMS is particularly good at I guess, that ability of being able to, for you as a consultant to be able to sort of manage multiple accounts and without like a ton of complexity? It sounds like it's a relatively, like, I don't want to say easy, but manageable situation for you.
It is. And again, that may be because my clients are smaller businesses. Right now, I don't have any one particular client that I'm supporting that has more than 500 active users a month, which is one of the other features that I wanted to point out. I know when you do a search on Capterra or something like that, the pricing structure for these LMSs, which is something that I don't know if it's appropriate to talk about or not, but I wanted to mention it. A lot of people look for an LMS that has active user license pricing structure. Yeah. Where you're only paying for the people who go in there every month. Yeah. You're not paying for all the thousands of users that you've had registered in your 5-year history. Mm-hmm. So TalentLMS does that, and it's scalable. I think when you get to around 500 active users a month, you're paying somewhere around $1 to $1.50 per user. Mm-hmm. That's just dirt cheap. And if there's an organization out there that can't work that into their marketing and their pricing structure, I just don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. Wow. So let me ask you how did you I mean, to be able to do this, you're probably an expert at using Talent LMS. Was this all knowledge that you gained through just applying yourself using that particular software? Did you take any, sponsored classes from those guys, or how did you get to be good with Talent LMS? Is it a big learning curve at all?
I'll tell you what. I mentioned some of the other LMSs that I worked with, and for those, I took ongoing training from those organizations throughout the year to just be able to do the basic functions that I needed for my job.
Mm-hmm.
With Talent LMS, I'm not an expert, but you don't need to be. It is that easy to use, and I think that one of the features that people tell me all the time that they really like about it, once I get them set up and I designate someone at that organization that can have access to pull reports and things, they always say, wow, I didn't realize how easy this was. And, it's just so intuitive, and it's just natural the way that you flow through the different navigation elements. And Talent LMS, like I said, they've got such a wonderful, I don't know if you call it knowledge base or what, but their help site and their knowledge base is just so extensive that if there's something that my client says, like, they want to do something new and I don't necessarily know off the top of my head if it's possible, I can dig through that knowledge base, and within, a few minutes to an hour, I've got a solution for how we can accomplish what they're looking to do. And I've found that there's almost always a workaround. If you can't do it exactly the way that they described, there's always some sort of workaround. So it's just flexible. It's easy. Sometimes you need to get a little bit creative, but when do you not have to do that as an instructional designer?
Well, let's talk about that. It's funny because last episode we were gushing about Exonify and and as much as I love to do that, I also want to hear some of the bad stuff. So like, what are some of the challenges maybe that you've had with it? Just to kind of, get us some reality as far as Talent LMS is concerned.
So while I just sat here and bragged about their knowledge base, I will say that my biggest challenge is their support. Okay. Especially with COVID, I think that they are seeing an influx of accounts being created and new accounts and people trying to admin that don't have as much experience. So they are supporting a ton of requests right now, and it's been a lot longer to get responses on little things. I had some gamification that I recently implemented for someone, and the point system wasn't adding up correctly. It's been 3 days and I'm still waiting on a response to that ticket. And
I think that's kind of typical right now too. Like,
it is. I think it's COVID related for sure.
Yeah. Rubina's asking, who do you reach out to for troubleshooting if something doesn't function properly in the LMS? Is there real person help?
So at the subscription levels that my clients are at right now, we have email support. So used to pre-COVID, there was less than 24-hour response time on every ticket, and I was able to get everything resolved within a day. Now it's still email support. If we were to bump up to the next level in our subscriptions, we would have live chat support. They do not have phone support. So I know that that's a big deal for some people. But again, like I said, there have been very few instances where I have needed that level of support and not had it. It's rare.
I think for I do a lot of IT stuff in my day job, and that's pretty typical. Is sort of like we have certain support relationships where it's like we're just forced to go through the knowledge base, usually find a resolution there, and then if we need to elevate it, we can go by we could send a message, and hopefully within a few days we're going to hear back. And I think that's pretty typical. If you did have sort of like that that very luxurious contract where you get to actually call somebody and talk to a human being and get an immediate resolution. It's going to cost you to be able to do that. So I totally understand. That's, yeah, makes sense. How about your biggest challenge when you're dealing with TalentLMS and you're having to support some of your clients? Is there something that sort of comes back around, on a regular basis that you might have to help different clients with?
Something that's come up recently is SCORM packages from Rise, and the functionality with iPads. So it's a very, very technical issue. It's browser based. It's related to Safari and something called CDN, which I don't know, Google it. I don't know what that means. But so evidently there's something that you have to turn off in Safari in order to get Rise SCORM packages to display properly in TalentLMS. I've heard rumor, just digging through support forums, that a lot of LMSs have this same issue. It has something to do with the way that Articulate Rise packages in a SCORM file and then displays in an embedded format. But that's been one of the issues. And the way that I've gotten around it is I'll create a tip sheet. So when we start talking a little bit more and we dive into the whole multi-tenancy, I'll explain how I set that up and what that's all about. But part of that is creating a login tip sheet that I give my clients to send to anyone who gets enrolled in the platform. And it includes some of those tips for, if you're an iPad user on Safari, or if you're a Mac user on Safari, here are some of the things that you might want to take advantage of in setting up your browser so that it'll work optimally with the platform.
Interesting. Yeah, CDN, I think it's Content Delivery Network. So maybe it's just retrieving those packages and might just get a little confused. I know Safari has some security protocols that are a little different from everybody else. So that could be it. Interesting. So now Kitzel has a question. Not sure if you can answer this one. Does TalentLMS delete courses, users, or do they archive them?
So courses are deleted. I believe it's permanently. Users are different. So you have a thing called the timeline as an admin in TalentLMS. And if you delete a user, that stays in the timeline for, I'm not sure the period of time, but you can go back in time and undelete that user if you've accidentally removed them and reinstate their account and all their records. So I guess it kind of does both, but technically it's archiving.
Yeah. Which is, that's helpful. Like Quetzal is saying, Docebo, for example, only does delete, and we had a recent scary moment with that. And I know, like in some of the systems that I use, like with Salesforce, that delete can be really, really tricky because you can make some huge mistakes if you just go with a permanent delete right away. Okay, so let's go ahead and move into that conversation about multi-tenancy. That was something that you brought up in our messaging, and how much you love that particular feature. And I'm just wasn't familiar with it. And when I was reflecting on it, I'm like, yeah, that is pretty cool. So why don't you go ahead and describe that?
Yes. So multi-tenancy is the thing that I love the most about TalentLMS. Now, they call it branching. So if you hear me refer to either term, it's the same thing. And let me just first start off with this. When it goes back to the whole pricing conversation, when I compared even some of the newer LMSs that have popped up recently, there was one that I just spoke with last week, and to get unlimited multi-tenancy increase the cost exponentially with any other LMS, where you're paying tens of thousands of dollars a year. Whereas with TalentLMS, you can have an unlimited number of tenants or branches, and it's just included in that awesome rate that they have. So to me, that alone was worth the price. And let me tell you why.
Perfect for consultants.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But for me, I use it a little different. I don't have my own instance of TalentLMS. but a lot of my clients use TalentLMS for both internal and external training. So I've got one client that does sales training, for example. They have an internal LMS that is their own URL. It is for their company, and it houses the whole plethora of resources that they have developed for their coaching guides, their external training, their internal training. Everything is there. Now, whenever they sell their programs to another client of theirs, so let's say that they sold it to Acme Corporation, and Acme Corporation was going to get a specific learning path that would include 10 courses over the course of 6 months that were going to be interspersed with some VILT sessions. Well, I could create a branch or a tenant for Acme Corporation and just clone the courses or grant access, either way I wanted to do it, grant access to those courses that I need, set up the adaptive release or the learning path or however I wanted to do it. And they would have their own environment that is technically on the back end still tied to the main company's internal instance of TalentLMS. But to them, to Acme Corporation, when they log in, they have a unique URL that's denoted by a subdomain. So it would be acme.salestraining.com. They would have the unique login screen. I could brand it to that organization. I could put Acme's logo, their color scheme, even their custom fonts if I wanted to, and create a course catalog that's unique to them to get them excited about their training program. And it keeps the reporting tools all separate and unique to that particular tenant or branch. So it's just a really cool feature. It's a great way to separate things for organizations that resell their training. Another use case that I've used it for recently was for industrial safety training companies. So they do OSHA training for the construction industry. They do industrial safety training. They do other very specialized types of training for the healthcare industry. And so we created categories within their main LMS instance to categorize the courses, keep them organized, and create like a library of their resources. And then every time they sell a program to somebody, we create a branch, and that branch will get access to whatever courses we need. And one of the other things that I was able to add on to that one is training somebody at those organizations, setting them up as the branch administrator, and giving them access to be able to pull reports. Because again, the completion tracking and the progress reports are really important in certain industries. So being able to designate an admin that only has rights to be able to pull the reports, so it's like a special user role, that was something that came along with creating those tenants that was really, really valuable.
Wow. So, okay.
Lots to digest there.
Yeah, I got a few questions. Is this, and I don't know this because I'm just not, I don't know enough about LMSs, but is this a common feature in LMSs, or is this something unique to TalentLMS? Any idea? Or maybe somebody in chat knows as well.
From what I've seen, it's a common feature just because I ask every time that I evaluate a new LMS, I ask about it. I ask, do you offer multi-tenancy? What's the cost? How many branches do I get to use? And that sort of thing. So I think if you ask, you'll find that it's out there. I recently spoke with, I can't remember the name. I think it was Paradiso LMS. They're one of the newer ones on the market. And they kind of have, they were expensive and really limited on their features, but they did offer multi-tenancy, which is good. And I think there are a few others out there that do as well. Wow.
So there Kitsal's asking what was the cost per user again? I think you said what was $1.50 or something?
It ranges, and again, it depends on the type of plan you're in, but when you get up to around 500 active users a month, you're gonna be somewhere between $1 and $2 per user per month.
Yeah. Okay. Thomas is saying fairly common in my experience, but rarely as simple as TLMS makes it. So,
Exactly.
so that's good. Now, so Leslie, did you know that that Talent LMS had this feature when you first signed up with them?
I did not. I was
Did
not
not.
aware of it. And it was one of those things that as the need arose, I discovered that feature.
Uh-huh.
And, I think it was just looking at one of their blog posts of the feature releases for a particular year that I learned about it and said, oh my gosh, I've got so many applications that I could use this for. So I immediately started playing with it and figuring it out and saying, okay, this is how I'm going to, tell people about it. And this is how we're going to roll it out. And, I get excited about things.
So wait, then just to clarify, does it cost extra to be able to use this multi-tenancy feature?
It is included.
No, wow. Let's see. Okay, so I've got a few questions in the Q&A and but Rubina has one specific to this. She hasn't heard of this term before. Is there a website that she can refer to learn more about multi-tenancy for LMS? Any idea?
I am going to pull something up right now.
Okay, cool. So maybe you can post that in the chat and we'll get that one answered for Rubina.
Yes.
And Tom has a great question here. How many of your clients use the TLMS off-the-shelf content, and does it generally get a positive response?
So we have not used any of it. I think most of my clients really want things created from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
I've looked at a few of the topics and, oh gosh, how do I put this nicely? I think I could do better.
Okay. There you go, Tom. See, this is great. This is so helpful. This information for anybody that might be, shopping for LMSs and interested in some of the features. That's really, really good to know. Thank you for sharing that.
And with the off-the-shelf training, here's the other point that I wanted to make with that. I think that there are a lot of instances where it really makes sense. And I've definitely promoted it. The concern that I have is creating a consistent design experience for the end learner. And because of the way that some of those programs that are off the shelf are developed, it doesn't keep with the consistent content flow and navigation that's set up for the rest of the learning modules in a particular organization that I might work with. And I worry about confusing the learners and them saying all of a sudden, well, what is this? This looks completely different from the training that I've been taking so far. This isn't right. So, I'd rather not throw them a curveball and keep with a consistent look and feel, a consistent design, consistent content flow, and stick with it that way.
No, that's great. And like Susan's saying, customization is usually preferred and branding is important. Totally agree. Absolutely. And that is, it's different from, I think, like the use case that Christiana and Mike were talking about in the last episode where Exonify uses Biz Library as their library of content. And they were just they talked about how they were able to just take all of the COVID information that Biz Library had and be able to share it freely to their employees and clients. And for that's kind of a different use case, but right. It is sort of like, it's along the same lines. Like for something like that, maybe that would be more appropriate. But yeah, definitely.
So speaking of the COVID training, one of my clients that does safety training in different industries, they deal a lot with bloodborne pathogens. And so that's a topic that they already had developed and custom branded with one of their facilitators facilitating the training, and created some wonderful videos and presentations that we were able to work into something really magical. And, they want their face on the training. They want people able to, especially with us being so distant from one another nowadays, they want to create that personalized experience where you're connecting to their brand, you're connecting to their facilitators and their training experts, and being a part of their organization and getting to know them instead of an off-the-shelf product that might not be so customized or personalized, and might not really speak to that organization's, what their values and their commitments are.
And does that work end up going to you? Building that content?
It depends on how comfortable the facilitator is in creating some of that content, but I usually end up putting it together in some form or fashion.
Yeah, and that helps. That helps as
my friend.
Yeah, as a consultant. Let's see. Rubina's asking, are there any authoring tools that don't work well with TalentLMS?
The one that I've struggled with recently, again, is Rise. I've used Storyline. Packaging, SCORM 1.2 is, I think, the easiest way to go. Storyline seems to work great. And again, I prefer to embed SCORM packages instead of having them pop up. I know a lot of the forums and things, people will say to use the pop-up. It works better, but it really doesn't. And the learner experience is a little wonky with that. So Rise would be the one thing that I will say has been problematic. But again, it's just because I have one particular client that the majority of their learners are on iPads. And I hate to say it, I'm a PC user.
Yeah. So that can be a challenge for sure. I want to kind of go back. You had mentioned how you'd migrated from Adobe Captivate and you're using more of the Articulate products.
Yes.
Is there something there in TalentLMS for that? Or why did you make that that change?
Oh gosh. So I am an early adopter of technology. I always have been. It's kind of like my hobby. I geek out on some of the new stuff that they come up with. It's just, my thing. So when Storyline first came out on the market, when it was first announced, I was in a Yukon training at the first conference that I could get into a pre-conference session and got training on, layers, triggers, and states. I wanted to know what it was all about. So I've used Storyline for a long time. But when it comes to TalentLMS, so just like your Blackboards, your Canvas, most of the other LMSs out there, you get a WYSIWYG editor. So what you see is what you get. It does allow you can bring in your own CSS if you're good at scripting, and you can customize some of the standard features that are available and make it, like I said, that whole customization element. You can really get in depth with it with TalentLMS. It doesn't have anything integrated like H5P where you could make some interactions or things like that, but there is a built-in knowledge check or test element that has, just your standard question types. My experience, it works really well on mobile devices as well. I think the whole platform is really well designed for that. So you can get creative with some of the tools that are built in. It does a great job with video content. You're limited on the demo license. So if you click on my affiliate link and you sign up for a demo account, it's free for, I believe, up to 10 courses. You can create a branch on there if you want to play with the multi-tenancy, but you're limited on your video size. So that's one thing that, as you get up there to an active subscription, you get a much larger video size.
Nice. All right. Tom has a comment that's good. That's the key. I think utilize off-the-shelf content, but signpost it, then create stunning bespoke content where it can deliver the most value. Yeah. I think that's, that's an excellent point. All right. So, all right. Yeah, cool. So you totally were going to Guild events if you were taking pre-cons from Yukon. Ron and his team, they're just wonderful people. Awesome. Okay. Let me see. So what else we got? Like, so as far as tools were concerned, you haven't had any problems at all with using like Articulate products except for Rise. Is there anything else in there that you've played around with that might work particularly well, or like just for somebody who might be considering Talent LMS, what products, are there any other limitations that you can think of?
None that I can think of, but again, I don't really get into any more sophisticated tools than, just your typical e-learning suite. So, I use Captivate, I use Storyline, I use Rise, I use Camtasia, but anything beyond that, I'm sorry, I just don't have the experience with it to be able to tell you. Again, for the applications that I use it for, I think simpler is better in a lot of cases. So, I produce a lot of PDF files and resources and documentation that can then be shared to the learners. So you can actually create like a file repository for your learners that they can download those. Which is really great. Yeah, exactly, Susan. I do a lot of simple documents, coaching guides for the sales training and leadership training, things like that. Worksheets, those embed very easily. And again, you have the option to share it for download or not, which is a great feature.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, so if you guys see, there is I can't recall if a button shows up, or is there something for there. We do have like an affiliate link for Leslie to for Talent LMS. It should be at the bottom of your screen. It's like a call to action. So if you want to check out Talent LMS, feel free to click on that and be on your way. Okay, awesome. So there are a couple questions in here before we wrap up that I want to just go over so we can get these answers. Rubina's asking, do you pay extra for support?
I do not. So Talent LMS, the support is included at your subscription level, and it really, I think only when you get up to the higher level, again, I think it's like 500 active users or higher, do you get access to that chat-based support, but otherwise it's email support. And it's, like I said, it's usually pretty fast. And I usually have zero complaints because they address everything very precisely with the instructions that I need. And just they get that answer to you the first time in most cases. But I really think COVID's just stretched everyone a little bit too thin. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm giving them the benefit of a doubt because I love them so much. Can you tell?
No, definitely. And it's great to hear that goes a long way. Like, it says a lot about the product itself. And I'm sort of surprised I haven't run into it more. I've seen them around, but it's great to hear this because I don't know if, for me anyway, it's sort of Talent LMS has been under the radar. Like when we were in the Slack group and you had posted about it, and then Tom was kind of effusively like making praises for Talent LMS. I'm like, who are those guys? I'm used to hearing, like the biggies, or even, like Calidus Cloud, who used to be Litmus and stuff as like that as kind of the newer sort of owners of the market. But Talent LMS, I just hadn't heard of. So it's great that you're sharing this information with us. And along those lines, we have this other question, which is a big question. And Janine had posted this earlier in the broadcast, and I'm not sure we can answer this specifically. I think this might be something you could just, that would be better served if you were to search on Google. But she's asking, are there top 5 LMSs used in the corporate worlds? And we'd probably need like some legit research to do that, but when you were doing your shopping, was there a group that you were looking at primarily to help as a solution for you?
Yeah, so one of my primary research sites has always been Capterra. I think they do great comparisons of different LMSs, but again, I know Saba's a huge name. I'm not a big fan. PeopleSoft, LMSs in the corporate world are so vastly different from one another in their integrations. Do they include the HR performance development component? Do they include benefits tracking? All these other features that you could add into the mix other than just learning and development. I think that it is challenging to compare them one for one, especially in the larger corporate LMS environments. Higher ed, it's a little bit easier because they do tend to have a lot more similarities. But, I think that the best advice that I can offer is make a list of the top features that you're looking for and really focus your search and your research on finding something that meets the needs of those top features that are on your must-have list. And then does it also meet your pricing point? Because I think that those are the things that, most organizations are going to focus on. Does it do what I need it to do and what's on my absolute must-have list? And does it meet the price point that I'm able to afford?
Yeah.
And then you can go from there. But again, I don't think that there's necessarily a top 5 because they're just not exactly comparable.
Yeah, because even in the last broadcast, sort of to go back to that again, is, they were using, I think, Oracle, Talio, I think it was called Talio Learn. And then they had Exonify on the other side, which, from what I've seen of both, they're dramatically different. But then for a huge enterprise, the Oracle product is probably more appropriate if it's just like, as just this giant LMS, but then the Exonify, you have more streamlined, more, just more customizable kind of content and interface. So, I guess
something that I definitely want to check out is Exonify. I think I need to listen to that recording.
Yeah, definitely check it out. So how much training did you get from TalentLMS when you first purchased their product? Did they I don't know, provide any type of training at all, or how did you go about learning about the system?
So the answer to that is none. It is very much, it's such an intuitive environment that I really don't think that you need to sit down with someone from the organization to say, hey, walk me through how to do everything. They have wonderful tutorials and knowledge base already set up for you that if you've had any sort of LMS experience in the past, even if it was on the instructor side where you're just publishing courses and enrolling students, you're going to be able to navigate it just fine. And if you're a resourceful person, if you're comfortable with searching and using those repositories that are available to you, you'll find the answers and the step-by-step procedures that you need to do almost anything that you're looking to do. I sat down with the folks from Instructure when Canvas first came out because I was working for a large university system here in Central Florida, and we were migrating from Blackboard to Canvas. And I was on the team that was in charge of test piloting that with a whole bunch of faculty members. And, that's another LMS that if we had time, I would just tell you how much I love it. But again, totally different application. And Canvas did really require an admin to sit down and go through some of their training. But TalentLMS it's a different ballgame. It's a much easier system to use. It's easy to figure things out if you just kind of poke around. And I love that the delete's not permanent.
Yeah. Wow. Fantastic. I think I'm just going to wrap up things here. Leslie, it has been so wonderful talking to you. It was really, really fun. And thank you so much for sharing this information. I mean, we did like almost an hour of stuff, and this is all really, really helpful information. It's been fantastic. Thank you so much. So where can people find you, get a hold of you? I know you have a website and
I do. I posted my affiliate link in the chat just in case that didn't work on your button. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am on Slack almost daily. Even though I'm a contractor, I stay signed in all the time. So you can always find me on the Slack channel. If you need anything, I'll post my email address. If you're wanting to try it out and you've got some questions, I'm happy to help anytime. So feel free to reach out. I love connecting with new folks in the industry. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was a pleasure talking to you. And I do feel like I've probably talked to you at you probably don't remember, but I feel like you just look familiar to me, and I've probably talked to you at guild events in the past. So it's nice to see you again. All right, you guys. So we're going to wrap that up tomorrow. Toddy is hosting Bejane Kareem. That is going to be a really, really cool conversation. I've been lucky enough to sort of see what they've been discussing via email on behind the scenes. And Bejane is a really, really interesting person. She's had a great journey. If you guys have the time to attend tomorrow, definitely tune into that one. That's going to be a cool conversation. They're going to be talking about just getting people interested in engagement and interest in science and technology conversations. So tune in for that tomorrow. And then Friday, we're talking about getting the most out of LinkedIn, which I feel like I'm way in over my head in that conversation already. But if you want to participate in that one and talk about your experiences getting the most out of LinkedIn, please attend. I would love to have as many people on screen as possible, rotating people in and out. So Friday, jump in on that. And with that, Leslie, thank you again for sharing with us. We'll see you in the Slack channel. Everybody else, hopefully we'll see you soon, and have a great week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.